But as we talked about, right, we retraced to that scene of the crime, couldn't break above it, got rejected off of it, and now we're back into this area. Again,
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Wagmi TV. Today, we're going to do a breakdown of Aerodrome, talk about where it is from a chart perspective. We also have some fundamental news, and then we're going to take a look at some of the behind-the-scenes emissions and different fundamental charts. So to kick things off, I believe we're going over to Mata for the chart analysis.
yeah, definitely. Let's dig in. It's definitely been a really crazy, I would say, last couple days for the market, right? We've seen a lot of downside, especially in a lot of altcoins. I think a lot of the good news, if you can call it that, was pretty priced into a lot of what was going on with Bitcoin, and obviously everything's kind of just waiting on Bitcoin to make its next move, right? As we always see, liquidity just kind of shifts from Bitcoin to the alts to some of these smaller coins as well that we've talked about on the channel, like some of the meme coins, etc. Of course, everybody's going to have their time in the sun, their runs, everything like that. Generally speaking, Aerodrome, yes, it's been beaten down pretty hard, as we've talked about. We kind of called the double top back here at the end of 2024, and so we've seen it take a pretty hard hit over the last couple weeks. But generally speaking, comparatively to a lot of other altcoins, it's actually held up decently. So of course, we have our upward end, right? Our all-time high that we essentially had a big double top on. We're still holding that range that we talk about all the time, right? It's right in that dollar range. So I think it's this low range is around 95 cents. High range is basically $1.02. So we're still holding this range, which I think is generally a good thing. Hopefully we can start to establish a little bit of support here. A couple additional areas that we're looking at are one, right, this downward trend line. As you can see, we shot up above it, we came down, we tried to hold it, we couldn't do it, actually broke down for a second, but didn't confirm that breakdown, came back up. Where we did see a massive breakdown here, kind of towards the beginning of 2025, we came down into this range, actually wicked below it, which was interesting. But as we talked about, right, we retraced to that scene of the crime, couldn't break above it, got rejected off of it, and now we're back into this area. Again, if we can establish some good support here, obviously we could be a little bit more bullish from that perspective. Two other things I want to just kind of bring up, right? We have this longer term trend line that we're looking at here. We haven't quite kissed it yet, so something that we are monitoring is that we could go potentially a little bit lower to actually hit, one of these trend lines to potentially establish our kind of low end support there as well. So just know you could see a little bit more downside, but generally speaking, as we've always talked about, this kind of purple range is generally a decent place to start to accumulate Aerodrome, even if it continues to go down slightly from there. Two other things really only one other thing I wanted to mention. So generally speaking, as we take a Fibonacci retrace of the lows of the chart to the highs, right, the all-time high, I thought one interesting point was actually right at the bottom of our range. You can see we actually have the 618 Fibonacci retrace, right? So we've come into that literally perfectly here on this Monday candle. So it seems to be acting as support right now. We'd hope that it continues to act as support right there. But really, the way that we can think about it is we have 2 points of confluence. One, obviously, our previous support that we're holding, and secondly, this 618 Fibonacci level that it's coming into very nicely here. So to stay bullish, of course, we'd love to stay in this range, if not higher. Though if we do drop slightly, maybe to kind of like the low 80s range, just know that we could get a bounce there as well. If we start to trade lower than that, that's when we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. But it's all going to depend on Bitcoin. So just keep your eyes and ears out for anything happening really macro perspective in the crypto market.
Very cool. It's good to see that Armada and everyone on this channel are not the only ones who think that right now might be a good time to accumulate AERO. We had some huge news this week, actually. Let me pull this up. So Wintermute Ventures, for those of you that don't know, Wintermute is one of the largest investment companies in the crypto space. They do everything from, venture investing to market making. They're one of the largest market makers. They do market making on all the centralized exchanges, all like the huge fintech apps like Robinhood, Revolut, those massive fintech companies. And so they're very, very involved in token investing and token trading. And it turns out this week, just a couple of days ago, it was announced that they market acquired, which means they market bought, just like all of us, a position in Aerodrome. On top of that, to show kind of like their conviction and their long term alignment with the ecosystem, they've also max locked it for VE Aero. And so you start to see a lot of the synergies. Obviously, Armada's detailing how right now could be an interesting time to accumulate. So it's definitely cool to see that larger players in the space also might be feeling the same way. Also interesting, obviously super bullish that they're taking that supply basically off the market, right? Because they've max locked it. So big news here this week. Kind of curious to get your guys' thoughts before we move into some of the fundamental analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is just another, like you were, talking to, like this is just another kind of validation that folks are seeing this as kind of the leader from the base perspective. I think we're also seeing it overtake, I think, a lot of attention from Solana. You know, meme coins like Toshi, right, and other ones like Miggles and Brett, like these have gained a lot of attention and have gone kind of punch for punch with Solana meme coins as well. And obviously that's just the meme coin arena. Then there's also obviously liquidity providing and gathering fees and all that kind of stuff in that piece. This kind of helps solidify that Aerodrome's here to stay, and Wordamute has a lot of experience market making. Sees that as a leader in the space. So that's a great point to bring up.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think the other part of it too is, like, I'm sure if you looked at Uniswap or some of the big dexes on Ethereum back in the day, if you were at this point in the timeline of the DeFi TVL building up on Ethereum, you think, hey, 4 years is a long time. Is this stuff really going to be around till then? And I think you're seeing the big players in the space also see that these projects have a future, just like we saw in the L1s, that these L2s are going to stick around and that there's a lot of growth that's going to happen there. So yeah, I think pretty bullish to see for Aerodrome.
100%. Let's hop on over to check out some of the metrics.
Yeah, let's do it. So this is the dashboard that we've gone through a couple times, but I think one thing I just wanted to talk about after looking at that chart is really just how sticky and how firm the TVL of this platform is. So, obviously when you looked at the previous AERO price pumps of the actual AERO chart, we saw basically a double top when it came to the run up in earlier 2024 versus late 2024. But the TVL tells a very different story. It's essentially double what we saw that first initial run up of Aerodrome. And so I think what at Epoch 68 about 8 to 9 weeks ago, we saw, above 1.5, so 1.7 billion, and we're still holding steady right around, that $1.3 billion level with a ton of that TVL in the slipstream pools. And so, I think we're still seeing super high swap fees. I think it's very bullish for Aerodrome. And I think, while we saw the initial 2x come from that first AERO pump to the second AERO pump, I think if we were to see, another leg up by Bitcoin and another leg up by Aerodrome, we could really see this TVL grow even further. I think above $2 billion isn't out of the question. So yeah, I think still very bullish from a technical standpoint. In the fundamental standpoint, I think there's still a lot of room to go on the upside of the TVL. You guys got any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I mean, you look at this entire dashboard, and basically every single chart is up and to the right. And I assume Wintermute Ventures probably also saw that, right? Tons of synergies in terms of their business model. Obviously, they're huge traders, huge market makers on the centralized exchange, and they want to be aligned with the top decks on base. And so, yeah, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's super bullish for the protocol, and it's also interesting to see kind of how that's all fitting together with kind of the opportunistic, buy zones that we're in from a technical standpoint as well. So kind of everything looks to be a-okay in my view.
Yeah, I think those are great points, and I love seeing that chart as well, because I think one of the the things that becomes more and more apparent is that Slipstream has caught on really, really nicely, and it continues to grow. Or a lot of times where, you know, these dexes and other platforms will, you know, and protocols will launch V2s of what they currently have, and they don't catch on right away. Like they take time or they fail. And I think that speaks to the ability for them to kind of put together something that incentivizes everyone properly, where the fees work out, people want to provide liquidity, and there's consistent volume coming in and value being locked in the protocol. So I think that's great. Great points all around. Love seeing the chart. Love hearing the update from Wintermute, and love seeing some of the background fundamentals. Hopefully that was helpful to all you guys, the listeners and viewers. Like, comment, subscribe if it was helpful. Let us know what you think, right? Are you back into AERO? Have you been holding this whole time? Just kind of curious to hear from the audience. And of course, not financial advice, even though we are clearly bullish on AERO. Definitely do your own research, and just for entertainment purposes only. With that, thank you so much, and until next week, Wagmi.